monster. You know, Putin got away with being able to say that the Chechens are something you wipe off of a toilet seat. I mean, that's not language. That's not diplomacy. That's a thug. He's a thug. Nobody wants to say it. Nobody wants to come out and absolutely say it. They just want to dance around it.
Covering a war for this length of time and to this depth means you get very close to your subject matter, and Stanley accepts that a level of sympathy has crept into his work.
Covering the war in Chechnya, there was a lot of romanticism. I mean, we romanticized the Chechens. I mean, look at these guys with beards and swords, and they had these dances, and they were amazing. I mean, these guys were true fighters, and I've never seen an army go laughing to death. I mean, laughing, making jokes about dying. Yeah, I had great admiration for them.
Sacrificing objectivity is sometimes a price worth paying when it allows you to tell the story of these people's lives.
It all comes down to how the photographer gains access. That's the main real quality, and the concentration of obtaining the right access. There are people that are really, really good in this. They understand, they got a very amazing synthetic mind to understand the situation in which they land from one minute to the other. You know, it's a question of priorities, and certain people are ready to risk everything to do exactly what they're interested in, and other people accept more compromising positions.
Green fully understands the Kappa ethos of being close to the action to get the best shot, and that this will inevitably lead him into danger.
There used to be this thing in Chechnya, if you hear it, you're dead. You hear, you're dead. And we hear this, but we want to see it, this rocket coming down. Now the Russians had some cute rockets. They had this one rocket would explode, and then it would release a chamber, and then that chamber would come at you something like out of 2001. It's like, but it's all pieces of metal, hot metal coming, and anything in its path just cuts it to pieces. But it's instantaneous, so you don't feel anything, you die. And so we turn around, and you see the rocket come down, and it like disengages, and you're like ready for it. And all of a sudden, it just drops to the ground. It's a dud. We're like pissing in our pants, and we're like, oh, fuck.
These people are courageous, and at their core, they're trying to do something good. It does take a lot of courage, and some may say stupidity sometimes, to go into a war zone and only have a camera when you're around people with guns. Interestingly enough, a lot of them tend to feel safe behind a camera when in actual fact they're not.
Courage is the control of fear. It sounds good. I don't know if it's worth dying for a story, but we tend to keep going to these places and we keep trying to get that story, so I guess the back of our minds, we must think it. We just don't want to say it.
But even if they survive and return home, there is a price to pay. Maybe not physical, but they definitely bear the emotional scars.
Most of the guys I know are uncomfortable in a big city. They tend to be fairly quiet, not social. I don't mean antisocial. I mean, they always seem to be waiting to go somewhere else, as if there's something out there they need to do. Those are the best guys. They're driven and they're ready to move into the next area of conflict.
I'm not sure that I actually do fit back in society, because I think that I'm cut from a different piece of cloth. I have a problem with, you know, I run a video in my head afterwards. Could I have done something? You know, there's a picture of the man with his legs blown off. Could I really have helped him? Could I have picked his body while it's falling? The guts are pouring out of him. And you're like, you have no answers. And that beats up on you until the next time. you know.
He went for 10 years, and many times he stayed for months and months. We're talking really a level of research and documentation that there's no magazine that will be able to publish ever in this form.
We're obsessed with the fact that someone could get a picture of Paris Hilton's crotch, or what new nonsense Britney's into. I mean, get real. We pay paparazzis, who now say that they're the real journalists today, money for chasing and making people's lives miserable, and yet you've got conflict photographers risking their lives, their homes, their sanity, and for pictures that aren't even going to make it. That are just gonna, we call it blood on the floor. It's gonna be blood on the floor because some asshole will sit there and decide what picture works or which picture is too difficult for the public to see. But we have no problem with showing people being chased down a street because they're a celebrity.
Our reporter John Manell's been speaking to another war photojournalist, highly respected, who worked in Vietnam, Philip Jones-Griffiths.
You have been described as one of the most respected photographers in the world. What's the one picture that you took in Vietnam which had the greatest lasting impact on you?
Well, I think there's a picture I've taken. It's a very simple picture, but it's of a woman who's actually been shot in the head. She's bandaged. Her hand is up to her face. She's got a tag on, and the dreadful tag.
War photographer Philip Jones-Griffiths was born in 1936, just as the golden age of photojournalism was about to begin. A degree in pharmacy and an interest in chemistry led him to the forensic process of photography. In 1966, he was sent to Vietnam. The conflict there was a stark contrast to anything he'd seen before. But his scientific background gave him an analytical approach to the strange situation in which he found himself.
What I try to do is to step back and sort of say, look, I'm going to get it right. Certainly in Vietnam, once I knew I didn't understand really what was going on, it was very, very confusing. I knew something. I knew that what I was seeing, not seeing, but what I was being told was incorrect. It was up to me to unravel it and find out what the truth was. And approaching it in a very empiric sort of way is not a bad way to go.
At the time, the coverage of the war was patriotic, one-sided, and shallow. Philip was sent to Vietnam by Magnum, a fiercely independent photographic agency that was started in 1947 by Robert Capa, Cartier-Bresson, David Seymour, and George Roger to protect the artistic integrity of their work. Many have seen Vietnam as a battle between communism and the American way. David versus Goliath, man against machine. But there was also a battle for hearts and minds, not just the Vietnamese, but also the American people back home. Reporting on this struggle was award-winning journalist John Pilger.
Philip and I worked together in Vietnam in 1969, 1970. Other photographers in Vietnam really weren't interested a great deal in the Vietnamese as people. They were interested in them as victims, in the same way they're interested in Vietnam as a war, not as a country. Philip saw them as a people, and he saw Vietnam as a country. And that made his work intensely political and compassionate.
The great thing about photography is little box around your neck, go anywhere, see anything, do what you want, check things out. The more you see, the more you learn. The more you learn, the more you see, an upward spiral. Hey, nobody can complain with that. And if in the end I have attitudes, if you like, which are political in the sense that I think these people are doing good stuff and those people are not doing good stuff, then I am political.